me?
Yes.
Hello, welcome. Welcome to the celebration of the Framingham Heart Study 70th anniversary. You've been here for a long time and we're doing such great things. I'm so glad to see the turnout today, that we have our participants in attendance and online watching.
Right.
We are so glad that you can be here to celebrate with us. This afternoon, we've invited a number of individuals who have helped make FHS the longest running observational study in the United States of America. As you see in your program, you'll hear from our participants, directors, committee members, investigators, and our supporting organizations, Boston University and the National Heart, Lung, and Blood Institute.
Yeah, that's good.
I'm going to keep my portion today short and simple because we've got a lot of individuals with unique perspectives connected to the study who are going to tell you a little bit more. Thank you for joining us this afternoon to celebrate our 70th years of extraordinary dedication by our research participants. These 3 generations of families have taken time year after year to devote hours to our research. Their dedication has resulted in decades of significant research findings that have dramatically improved the public health of our nation. It is my pleasure to introduce our speakers today, and I want to be the first to say a profound thank you to our participants. So first, I would like to introduce you to Reverend Deborah Clark, who will be leading us in an invocation. Reverend Deborah Clark, or Debbie as she's commonly known, has been a pastor of the Edwards Church since 1996. A graduate of Amherst College and Harvard Divinity School, she was ordained in 1989 and has served churches in Malden and Winthrop. Debbie lives in Framingham with her partner Fran, who is also an ordained UCC minister, and their dog Jeannie, who is trained as a service dog for the ministry. Reverend Clark has also generously devoted her time throughout the years as a member of the Ethics Advisory Board for the Framingham Heart Study. The objective of our Ethics Advisory Board is to serve as an advisory panel to the Framingham Heart Study Executive Committee regarding ethical conduct of the research going on within our study. With that, I will let our festivities begin. Reverend Clark.
Thank you. When I came to Framingham 22 years ago, one of my parishioners told me about being part of the first group of folks that were knocking on doors, recruiting people for the Framingham Heart Study. So I was pleased a few years ago to be asked to be part of it through the Ethics Advisory Board, where I have been so impressed by the thoughtfulness and care of all of the scientists and researchers working to ensure that everyone's dignity and well-being are of the top importance. Would you join me in prayer? Source of life, we give you thanks for hearts. Hearts that pump blood through our bodies, hearts that carry oxygen to our organs, hearts that beat to enable life. We give you thanks for passionate hearts, 70 years of doctors, researchers, administrators, scientists who examine patients, study data, apply for grants, coordinate visits, process lab work, who devote their lives to health for all people. We give you thanks for faithful hearts, for members of the Ethics Advisory Board who carefully examine the implications of every research decision to ensure that they honor the dignity of each person. We give you thanks for generous hearts, generations of study participants who give of their time so that future generations can lead healthier lives. As we gather with thanks for the first 70 years of the Framingham Heart Study, we seek blessings for the future. May new insights lead to new advances in health. May we use new technologies wisely, attentive both to their potential and to unintended consequences. May we uphold the dignity of each person involved in the study. May we be a source of wisdom, healing, and hope for our world. Amen.
Thank you, Regent Clark. Next, I'd like to introduce you to John Galvani. John is the president of the Board of Trustees for the Friends of the Framingham Heart Study and a third-generation participant. John and his family have devoted the past and present years of dedication to our study. They have numerous members who participated across generations. This includes 4 brothers and 1 sister, all of the third generation, also several aunts, uncles, cousins, and his 110-year-old grandmother is one of the few remaining participants of the original cohort. Mr. Galvani resides in Framingham with his wife Paula and 4 sons. He's an active member of Norwood and the Framingham communities. I'm going to leave it to John to describe all of his participation and the great work he does with the Friends of the Framingham Heart Study, but I know I share his wish for a 4th generation to be added to the study in the coming years. Thank you, and please join me in welcoming Mr. Galvani.
Hi, everyone. First, I'd like to recognize my fellow board members who, through the generosity of the board, have sponsored this event today. Peter Allen, our treasurer, Jaydev Dasgupta, Jim Gordon, Janice Kiley, Nancy Spinelli, Donna Tanner, and Ellen Walker. And also, a special thank you to our Director of Operations, Greta Lee Splansky, who could not make it today as she's not feeling well, but to thank her for her hard work in ensuring the success of today's event. As Michelle stated, that as a 3rd generation participant, I have lots of family and friends that remain active. And the one thing that all of you, I'm sure as participants, feel is the sense of responsibility to remain active, the enthusiasm that we all have in making sure we attend every exam, that we drive into Boston when we have to for the spin-off exams, and we do it not for ourselves, but for the benefit of future generations, so that through the research of the heart study, they can find ways to allow people to live longer and live healthier lives. The participants that live out of state and out of the country, when I hear stories of the sacrifices they make to time their visits back home so that they can attend the exams, it's truly remarkable. And the work of the board, and through the help and the support and the invaluable relationship we have with Boston University, to do everything we can to ensure that the heart study lives on. And as Michelle stated, the hope of one day soon having a 4th generation study. So thank you, all of you, for your sacrifice and your efforts, for not for ourselves, but for future generations. So thank you.
As you'll see in your programs, we had Dr. David Goff on our program, but he was unable to attend as he's dedicating some time to an event there in Washington. We are so thankful, though, to have another member of the NHLBI, the National Heart and Lung and Blood Institute, here with us, Brian Kitt. Brian is the project officer for the Framingham Heart Study, and he's a board-certified pediatrician. Brian spends dedicated hours with us every week in committee meetings from afar, and I just want you to all recognize his dedication and join me in welcoming him to our city of Framingham today.
Thank you for that introduction. I just first want to start off by saying that Dr. Groff is really sorry that he wasn't able to be here today. And I'm delivering these remarks on his behalf, but it's really, really, really exciting for me to be here, and it's an honor for me to be here as part of this celebration. So, but on behalf of the National Heart, Lung, and Blood Institute, I'm pleased to be here to share on the 70th anniversary of the Framingham Heart Study. It's an honor to be here among the participants of this historical study, and as well as researchers from both NIH and Boston University. It's wonderful and terrific that Congresswoman Catherine Clark and Mayor Spicer can be here today with us, and then we'll hear from Senator Elizabeth Warren. NHLBI Director Dr. Gary Gibbons was unable to be here. However, there is a letter in your program that you'll see which he sent to commemorate this important event, and this is in the brochure provided. So Framingham has, as you all know, has always been a pioneer, a study that's a pioneer. It was among the first studies to apply complex epidemiologic methods to try to understand any non-infectious disease. And by following men and women across time and over time, the study was able to reveal major risk factors for cardiovascular disease and identify important avenues for prevention and treatment of cardiovascular disease. For example, if you're taking blood pressure medication, you can thank yourselves as members of the Framingham Heart Studies for identifying high blood pressure as a risk factor for heart disease and stroke. But beyond the extensive and vast data that's been collected and the information that's been generated from the Framingham Heart Study, it's important to recognize the influence in which the study has had on researchers, both across the nation and across the world. For heart disease alone, a number of studies that are focused on unique populations have been modeled after the Framingham Heart Study. These include Framingham's sister study, the Jackson Heart Study, a study focused on African Americans, as well as the Hispanic Community Health Study. You know, what's amazing about the Framingham Heart Study is that we continue to learn from this study even today, 70 years later. And the study has grown to support discovery of genetic risk factors, the development of precision medicine, the adoption of apps and wearable devices into the study protocols really allows for a generation of new research and new data and new advancements. In addition, new tools are shedding light on how lifestyle and environmental factors influence how genes are expressed and how they can be modified to prevent or promote disease. So in short, for 70 years and counting, Framingham continues to change the way we study and approach cardiovascular disease, as well as other chronic diseases. One thing we know about Framingham is that today's discoveries in the Framingham Heart Studies will lead to advances and ultimately improve our nation's health. At NHLBI, we also know that it is the people of Framingham that have helped make the study the crown jewel of epidemiology that is known for today, not only in this nation, but again across the world. As Dr. Gibbons said in this letter to you, on behalf of the NHLBI community, I'm pleased to convey my profound appreciation to the generations of families from Framingham for their generosity in sharing their life histories to improve the health of the nation. Today, we celebrate the legacy of what we have learned from all of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Hitt. Thank you for being here with us today. And I want to say a special thank you for both of our NHLBI members who are here today and continue to support the Framingham Heart Study. And I'd also like to take a moment to recognize the second partner of the Framingham Heart Study, Boston University School of Medicine. FHS began in 1948 under the direction of the National Heart Institute, which is now known as NHLBI. Researchers of the Framingham Heart Study opened their doors in 1948 and recruited 5,209 men and women. In 1971, the Framingham Heart Study became a joint project of the NHLBI and Boston University. Boston University has been a partner with the study for 50 years. Today, a majority of our investigators and staff at the Research Center in Framingham are Boston University employees, including myself. We are very thankful for the continued support from Boston University. And as President Brown notes in his message to us today in the program, the Framingham Heart Study and its objectives and results reflect Boston University's mission to create new knowledge to benefit society. Boston University is proud to be the principal academic partner in this long-running project. Here today to represent our university, we have Dean Karen Antman. Dr. Karen Antman, an internationally recognized expert on breast cancer, mesotheliomas, and sarcomas, is the provost of the medical campus and has been dean of the Boston University School of Medicine since 2005. Dean Antman previously served as the Deputy Director for Translational and Clinical Services at the National Cancer Institute of the National Institutes of Health. And before that, as Wu Professor of Medicine and Pharmacology and the Director of the Herbert Irving Comprehensive Cancer Center at Columbia University College of Physicians and Surgeons. What a name. Where she also co-directed the Cancer Care Service line at the New York Presbyterian Hospital. I'm going to keep that short. I know she's done quite a few more things, but I'd like you to join me in welcoming Dr. Karen Antman.
So it's a real pleasure to welcome you here today to celebrate the 70th anniversary of the Framingham Heart Study. On behalf of you, I'd like to first of all congratulate Heart, Lung, and Blood, who initiated the trial back in 1948. So thank you to Brian Kitt and Dan Levine, who will be speaking as well, and to Phyllis Shalinsky. I'd like to congratulate the town of Framingham. 3 generations of Framingham participants. We'd like it to be a 4th. And 2 generations of Omni participants as well. We'd like to congratulate our Framingham investigators and staff and the many other investigators over the whole world and the greater Boston area who support the study through ancillary research as well. So it's not just available to Boston University, but many universities in the region and globally also make use of the data in order to make discoveries. 70 years ago, Framingham residents volunteered to be a part of a study to better understand heart disease. Thanks to you, researchers have defined cardiac risk factors such as diabetes, hypertension, and elevated cholesterol. Thanks to you, deaths from heart disease have dramatically decreased in the United States and other developed countries. Thanks to you, the study has had huge repositories from whole genome sequences and scanned images at regular intervals that allow scientists to actually track diseases even before they become clinically apparent and to see ways in which we can intervene before they develop. Thanks to you, scientists can comb through the data from decades ago for effects of not only established markers, but also newly developed markers. It's a true privilege to be able to take a newly developed marker and then to see through 3 generations what effect it might have had, and we already know the outcomes because of these studies. You have changed the health of generations here in the United States and globally. I've known some of the participants who actually went to Norway for a vacation and checked into a hotel, and they said they were from Framingham, and the desk clerk said, "Oh, you're from Framingham." So today the study is using the latest technologies to advance science, from dynamic exercise testing, vascular and brain imaging, high throughput profiling, and monitoring with smartphones. Data from the studies generated almost 4,000 published studies in medical and scientific journals. And Boston University, as you've heard from our president, stands strongly behind the Framingham Heart Study, now the Framingham Health Study, and its continued quest for groundbreaking science. We look forward to the future of Framingham because we believe that the best discoveries of this ambitious study are yet to come. Thank you.
All right, we're going to take a little break in our speakers here in person, and we've had a number of special messages sent to us from some of our folks that could not be here with us today. Of course, you can see here, our first message is from U.S. Senator Elizabeth Warren.
With a group of over 5,000 women and men. 7 years later, it's still going strong. This incredible collaboration with the National Institutes of Health and Boston University has been woven into the fabric of life in Framingham for over 3 generations. It has saved lives by providing unparalleled insights into heart disease and advances in cardiovascular medicine. And the genetic and physical data collected continues to give researchers around the world insight into a range of diseases, not only heart disease, but cancer, Alzheimer's, diabetes. For me, this study is personal. My dad had a heart attack when I was a little girl, and it flipped our whole world upside down. My mother died of a massive heart attack. Nobody even knew that she had advanced heart disease. You know, back then in the 1990s, just like in the 1890s, heart disease was often just considered a man's disease. Today, women and men get more complete medical care, and they need it. Coronary heart disease is the #1 killer of both men and women. But we better understand the risks and causes of cardiovascular disease thanks to research like the Framingham Heart Study. I know that decades and decades of research isn't easy, so I just want to say thank you. Thank you to all the dedicated scientists at Boston University. Thank you to the researchers at the NIH and the National Heart, Lung, and Blood Institute. And thank you to the people of Framingham and their families who have made this life-saving research possible. I am grateful down to my toes to be a part of this celebration of medicine and leadership. Thank you, and congratulations to the Framingham Heart Study on your 70th anniversary.
And the second message from our U.S. Senator Ed Markey, who's also sorry that he could not be here with us today, but he's thinking of our study and our participants here in the room and abroad.
Hello, I'm Senator Ed Markey, and I'm so sorry that I cannot be with you in person today for this incredible event. But it is my great pleasure to congratulate the National Heart, Lung, and Blood Institute at the National Institutes of Health, Boston University, and the city of Framingham for achieving an important milestone, 70 years of remarkable Framingham Heart Study progress. Remarkable because for 70 years, the Framingham Heart Study has been the pinnacle of public health research, uncovering the risk factors for cardiovascular disease and improving how we study and treat chronic health conditions. You've opened up your community to benefit the health and wellness of the entire world, and thanks to this unique form of hospitality, heart disease deaths in the United States have decreased by more than 67% over the last 50 years. You are saving lives. Research is medicine's field of dreams, from which we harvest the knowledge to develop the next treatment and one day a cure. for some of the most debilitating diseases plaguing our world today. You've been sowing seeds of knowledge in Framingham for 70 years. Americans are not only reaping the health benefit of what you're doing here, they're gaining hope that by working together, we can prevent disease and save lives. So I thank you for your historic contributions to public health. I will be fighting in Washington for the funding you need so that in another 70 years, a new generation of the Framingham Heart Study will be celebrating even more life-saving achievements. Framingham, it's a word that is associated with life-giving breakthroughs. So we thank all of you there for helping to make this great progress. I was there speaking on the 50th anniversary. We are now coming up to the 70th anniversary, but your work is not done. And the hope that you're creating is going to generate all kinds of changes in the way in which healthcare is, in fact, provided for millions of people across our country and across the world. Thank you so much for everything that you do.
All right, so next, I'd like to introduce U.S. Congresswoman Catherine Clark for the 5th District of Massachusetts. Congresswoman Clark's career in public service is driven by her commitment to helping children and families succeed. She's a vocal advocate for ending wage discrimination, protecting women's health care, access to affordable, high-quality child care, paid family leave, safer schools, and other reforms to address the challenges women and families face. She believes that Congress must work to end the glaring disconnect between the needs of families at home and the priorities in Washington. In Congress, she brings her experience as a state senator, state representative, general counsel for Massachusetts Office of Child Care Services, and policy chief, the state attorney general. Congresswoman Clark represents a diverse district comprising 24 cities and towns that stretch from the coastal communities of Revere and Winthrop to the economic engine of the Metro West, including our own Framingham, Massachusetts. She serves on the U.S. House Committee on Appropriations. In the House Democratic Caucus, she serves as the senior whip and is a member of the Steering and Policy Committee. In addition, she's a member of several caucuses in Congress, including the Congressional Progressive Caucus and the Women's Caucus. Congresswoman Clark has, of course, been a continued supporter of the city of Framingham and the Framingham Heart Study. In Washington, she's been an advocate for the continued support of our research, and we're so pleased to have her support in Washington, but also her presence today here with us. Please join me in welcoming Congresswoman Catherine Clark.
Thank you. It is such a pleasure to be here, and thank you for that introduction. Glad to be here in person so that you don't get any freeze frame of my face. Our poor senator there. But I am truly thrilled and honored to be here, and I want to thank Dean Antman for your work, for being here, and for Boston University's incredible role in this research and in this study. And it is a pleasure to be here with Mayor Yvonne Spicer, State Representative Jackie Lewis, who's here, and of course, the NIH and the Heart Study's distinguished leaders. And so pleased to be here, John, with the Friends of the Framingham Heart Study, and of course, all of you who are participants in this study. We're really here to celebrate and show our gratitude to you. And I wonder if every participant would raise their hands so we can. Oh my goodness. John, you could raise your hand for your grandmother. That is fantastic, and I think gives hope to us all at 110 about the research. We know this study is such a treasure, and it is known globally for its groundbreaking contributions to the field of epidemiology. And because of your discoveries, our nation and our world are healthier and smarter. And Framingham's story is so intertwined with this research, and it really is the American story. And it's hard to think back to 1948 when this began. FDR had just passed away a few years ago from heart disease, and we were recovering from World War II, when a few brilliant, curious Massachusetts minds had the idea to partner with Washington to tackle what was one of the leading public health crises of the time, and that's heart disease. And Framingham was chosen, I am told, because it was a typical American town. And when the population was just 25,000 and Framingham was still a town. And Framingham may have seemed typical, but the results of this study have been pioneering, bold, innovative, and really have always at its heart relied on coming together as a community to contribute to this incredible public effort. For over 70 years, the study and the exploration, Framingham has taken us from beyond diagnosis and treatment to prevention. And it's tackled some of the most vexing questions facing the field of biology. But it also has been revolutionary in the way it's approached science as one of the most long-running, comprehensive, multi-generational studies in the world. It's changed the way that we look at chronic disease and public health. And fundamentally, it's changed the way we live our lives. The facts that we all take for granted now, that smoking is related to heart disease, that high cholesterol, high blood pressure are indicators and can cause heart disease. All of these things that we just assume are common knowledge came out of this study, came out of the contribution that all of you have made as participants. And this spring I got to tour the Framingham facility for the first time. And with every visit, I learned something new. And one of the startling facts was how many, over 3,500 medical articles have been published relating to Framingham Heart Study. And groundbreaking for the time, more than half of the original participants were women. And learning the effects of heart disease on both men and women, contrary to what was originally thought at the time. It really is incredible to think of the impact that you have had on our country and our collective health. Framingham's paved the way for preventative approaches to disease. As was cited before, from 1969 to 2013, U.S. deaths from heart disease fell almost 68%. And deaths from stroke fell 77%, directly related to the preventions and diagnostics that have been developed in this study. You have given us the opportunity and ability to take control of our personal health and risk through lifestyle adjustments and discovery of treatments. And there's one lesson that particularly guides my work in Washington, and that is the importance of government investing in science and medical research. And the type of partnership between Congress and the science community that led to the inception of the Framingham study is what will allow our nation to continue to march towards progress. As a member of the House Appropriations Committee, I am very proud to support the National Institute of Health, and Framingham has been a major focus of mine. And in March, we passed an appropriations bill that included a $3 billion funding increase for NIH. It was one of the many things I had to get used to when I first went to Congress, that we tossed around billion with a B, but that's $3 billion, and bringing the agency's fiscal year total budget to over $37 billion. This funding is an investment in our future. And as you know, NIH is the nation's primary funder of biomedical research that leads to advances in scientific knowledge and better health. And also, an important component for here in Framingham, incredible economic development. Beyond Framingham, the Commonwealth is the nexus for much of this proud legacy. Our educational institutions like Boston University and Framingham State University, our companies, our distinguished researchers have helped communities across the globe and changed the course of history. And in addition to your contributions to science, the economic impact cannot be overlooked. NIH in 2017 awarded over $2.7 billion in grants and contracts to the Commonwealth of Massachusetts that spurred over 32,000 jobs and $6.4 billion in economic activity. The Framingham Heart Study is the proof point that financial benefits of investment in scientific research are not just confined to an individual project, but these investments have a multiplier effect that strengthens our whole economy. And there's one more lesson that I think we have really learned from your contributions to this study. When we come together, when we collaborate for the common good, so much is possible. This is truly a community-based study. And even though your participants are spread throughout the country and even throughout the globe, it is really about working together for a higher purpose. And we know that the sacrifices you make as participants to keep this research going. And as we look at a deeply divided country today, I think that what we're celebrating with this study is such a good reminder of how our country is stronger when we do act together, when we come together and we work with a common purpose. And for that example, I'm so grateful to all of you because you have made that possible and that example for all of us. In addition, the incredible scientific and health research that you have helped us unlock. So I am always proud to represent Framingham when I pull open that door to the U.S. House of Representatives, and I love to brag about the Framingham Heart Study. I have to tell you, I drop your name a lot in my videos. And I just want to say how deeply proud I am and how deeply grateful I am for all of you for this work and for this incredible contribution to global health and to health right here in our neighborhoods and communities. And here today, the next speaker is a very special friend of mine, a partner, an advocate, and a champion for Framingham in this heart study. I'm very pleased to introduce our mayor, Mayor Spicer.
Good afternoon. On behalf of the citizens of Framingham, I welcome you, and I, being a resident of Framingham for the last 33 years, I have always known about this heart study, and it's interesting as I traverse different venues and with different people, when I say I'm the mayor of Framingham, they say, oh, the home of the heart study. So that is our calling card. And it is something that I'm extremely proud of as well. 70 years have passed since medical researchers began tracking the course of cardiovascular disease in Framingham. An article I recently read stated that much of what we've known about the risk factors for cardiovascular disease, cigarette smoking, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, overweight, physical inactivity, and diabetes, was a mystery before the project of the Framingham study. And I will say to you, just like Senator Warren, this is personal for me. Both of my parents suffered with heart disease, and both of them subsequently passed away as a result of it. But a lot of the knowledge that I've gained over the years, I have you know I am a very healthy person as a result of it. And even though my DNA has had a lot of challenges with heart disease, today I live a very healthy life. I even box today and on a regular basis. Framingham continues to progress as new technologies develop to monitor the heart and the progression of cardiovascular disease. My background is science and engineering, and just leaving, I was here in Tech Park, making a stop at Bose Corporation, but I've also worked with Genzyme, so right at the epicenter of some new technologies and new businesses in Framingham that will also contribute to us living a healthier, better life. And that's something I'm very excited about being the mayor of Framingham. The commitment of the residents of Framingham has been a vital part of this study. And I congratulate each and every one of you that has been a part of this study and a part of your family legacy that has been in this project. Through your efforts, we know a lot. And like any other scientific discovery, it does have opportunities to continue to grow. And having that background and knowledge of what has preceded only helps us get better and healthier as we move forward. We've contributed to many of the major findings about heart disease and made the last 70 years a lasting legacy for many families. I'm grateful to those who participated and encouraged by all of those to think about their health as individuals, as thinking about our legacies in our families, and as well as a collective community. Because I'm convinced a healthy community is a good community. I'm also convinced it also adds to economic prosperity in one's community. So I am focused and centered in Framingham on making sure that I'm investing in our residents. I'm investing in economic growth and development. I'm also investing in new technologies that will help us as we move forward. I'm honored to witness 70 years, and I'm only excited by what will happen and continue to happen for the Framingham Heart Study and all of its partners in this work. I'm thrilled that Framingham has been at the epicenter, so I am proud to say I am the mayor of the city of the Framingham Heart Study. So I thank you.
Thank you, Congresswoman, and thank you, Mayor. We're so glad to have you here. Next, I am proud to introduce one of our directors of the Framingham Heart Study, Dr. Daniel Levy. Dr. Levy is the director of the Framingham Heart Study, chief of the Population Sciences branch of the National Heart, Lung, and Blood Institute, and a professor of medicine at Boston University School of Medicine. He's received several national awards, including from the National Institutes of Health and the American Heart Association. He's published over 700 articles in leading medical journals. His areas of research focus on epidemiology, genetics of hypertension, heart disease, and heart failure. Please, Daniel Levy, come to the stage. Join me in welcoming him.
Thank you, Michelle. What an honor to be here. Today we take for granted that cardiovascular disease is preventable, but that wasn't always the case. At the beginning of the 20th century, the leading causes of death in our country were infectious diseases, pneumonia, influenza, tuberculosis, and infectious diarrhea. And the average life expectancy of a baby born in our country was only about 50 years. Today, the leading causes of death are chronic diseases, heart disease, cancer, chronic lung disease, and stroke. And the life expectancy of a baby born in our country is about 80 years. In just over 100 years, we've seen a radical transition in the major causes of death, as well as an increase in the life expectancy of a baby born by over 50%. By the middle of the 20th century, heart disease had become an epidemic. It had risen seemingly out of nowhere to become the leading killer of men and women in our country. The wake-up call for our nation occurred on April 12, 1945. President Roosevelt died from a massive brain hemorrhage due to untreated and uncontrolled hypertension. His last recorded blood pressure was 300/190. His fate was something that should never happen to anyone in our country. But back then, in the mid-1940s, we were ignorant about the underlying causes of heart disease, and with no understanding of its causes, we were powerless to treat or prevent heart disease or stroke. In 1948, under the leadership of the U.S. Public Health Service, the Framingham Heart Study began with the primary aim of identifying factors contributing to the risk of heart disease. The original cohort consisted of 5,209 men and women from this community who were between 30 and 60 years of age. Participants were put through extensive evaluation, a physical exam, laboratory tests, chest x-ray, electrocardiograms. They were brought back every 2 years since that time for repeat exams. After about 10 years of follow-up with the study participants, the early clues began to emerge. Elevated blood pressure and elevated blood cholesterol were found to be key risk factors for heart disease. In the years that followed, the Framingham Heart Study would identify cigarette smoking, diabetes, obesity, and a sedentary lifestyle as additional risk factors for heart disease. The discovery of modifiable risk factors for heart disease paved the way for clinical trials of hypertension treatment and cholesterol-lowering therapy, as well as smoking cessation. We now know that heart disease and stroke can be prevented by very simple treatments. In fact, over the past 50 years, death rates from heart disease and stroke have declined by about 50%, representing a savings of hundreds of thousands of lives each year. The lessons learned from the first 70 years of the Framingham Heart Study have translated into extraordinary improvements in people's lives here in Framingham, across the United States, and all around the globe. We now have 3 generations of Framingham Heart Study participant families and 2 generations of minority participants from the Omni study. And the scientific discoveries continue. We have already published about 4,000 papers in the scientific literature, and these papers are providing new insights that may someday lead to the development of yet newer approaches to the treatment and prevention of cardiovascular disease. Today, we're here to celebrate the 70th anniversary of the Framingham Heart Study. We're also here to thank all of our study participants for their unflagging dedication to this unique project. Your altruism has contributed to essential discoveries that have allowed countless people to live longer and fuller lives. Signs around Framingham proclaim it as the town that changed America's heart. We can no longer make that claim now that Framingham is no longer a town. Perhaps we can change those signs, Mayor Spicer, and declare Framingham the city that changed America's heart. On behalf of the Framingham Heart Study staff and our investigators, we thank you, the Framingham participants, for your gift to the world. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Levy. Finally, I have the pleasure of introducing Dr. Boston Ramachandran. Dr. Ramachandran is the principal investigator and the director of the Framingham Heart Study at Boston University. He's currently a professor of medicine and epidemiology at Boston University School of Medicine, the Boston University School of Public Health, and a section chief of preventative medicine and epidemiology. Dr. Ramachandran is also the J. and Lewis Kaufman Professor of Vascular Medicine at BUSM. know how we have the time. Dr. Ramachandran has had a 25-year history in research in cardiovascular epidemiology, including large research studies, mentoring and training grants from the NIH. And Dr. Ramachandran is a recipient of many prestigious national and international awards, including from the American Heart Association. He has published a wide range of cardio-related topics. He's published on a wide range of cardiology-related topics, authoring and co-authoring over 900 reference articles, book chapters, and an encyclopedia of cardiovascular medicine. His research focuses on cardiac imaging, heart failure, biomarkers of health and heart disease, and he introduced metabolics, proteomics, I always skip on that one, and cell-based phenotyping and microbiome studies in the FHS. Please join me in welcoming our principal investigator and our director, Dr. Boston Ramachandran.
Good afternoon. Much of what I have to say has already been said. So why don't I tell you a story instead? How about a story about me and you? It is called Staying Curious and Daring Too. A tale about the science together with you. It starts with a cold, blustery day in Jan. I took the commuter rail to Framingham for a fellowship interview, truth be told, along with my daughter of 3 years old. It was a fun day with Dad out in the cold. Try explaining a job interview to a 3-year-old. For the train ride I took, a doctor's news book. A fun thing for a 3-year-old to look. Because I did all the places you will go. It's a tiny wrinkle though. Oh. It was a snow event unfolding. An euphemism for 9 inches of snow I was going. And the windiest of winds that it holler and slam, welcoming me into Framingham. The distance from the train station was only a mile. Pretty long and slippery mile. I walked slowly holding my blizzard, marveling my daughter making snowballs in the blizzard. Frozen and cold and pelted by hail, I wondered if I was ready to bail. Or should I be daring and let curiosity prevail? I thought of Dr. Seuss' Holy Grail. We'll come to a place where the streets are not marked. Some windows are lighted and mostly they are dark. A place you could sprain both your elbow and chin. Dare to stay out? You dare to go in? Come on, Dad, let's go in. Excitedly, she pulled me in. The building was all cozy and warm. The sunniest of people in the place was a swarm. My daughter kept me busy with kindling delight. I met all the people who made me deep right. I met Bill Castelli, who wanted to be certain I understood you, the participant, are the most important person. I shook hands with Dr. Candle, who with exceptional caring told me to always stay curious and daring. Did you like the place, sweetheart? I asked my daughter as homeward sweetheart. I loved it, she said, letting out a coo. For me, it was love at first sight too. My decision I did weigh the doctors use way. Things may happen, and often they do, to people as brainy and as footsie as you. And when things start to happen, don't worry, don't stew. Just go right along. You will start happening too. Indeed, that summer, I started happening. Entered my Disney world, bright-eyed and examining. A remarkable human spirit, never once dampened. Of people who were paying it forward. One data point at a time, upwards and onwards. One exam at a time, 2 generations in their prime. My daughter grew tall. I grew up too. Standing on shoulders lifted by you. In science, in humanity, and humility too. The manuals grew thick. The hairs turned gray. And now the grandchildren, there were they. of finding the shed, but we rebounded instead. And we were curious and daring too, therefore we asked hundreds of questions of you. Why do people develop factors of rest? And why do they progress at rates of rest? How high does a BP really have to be for us to call it high? Ochi. Is it the calcium in our arteries, or the one in our diet, or the one in our bones? We debate with endless disquiet. Is it grandpa's genes that cause us to glow? Or is it the comfy couch and the handy Maybe it's those darn soda pops. Or what do you think? Mom's lamb chops. We let out the genie out of the omics tool box. We assessed whole genomes and everything unorthodox. From metabolome to proteome and EFHS2. From PET scans to bone scans and liver scans, you. Lots of delicacies in our magical soup. Who imagined great science could come from your poop? And now we know. Exam 10 for Gen 2 will soon be here. Exam 4 or Gen 3 will then follow. Did you all hear? Stay tuned for newsletters and updates. Be aware. You know we are curious, raring to dare. We will be contacted by a stellar crew. We have big plans for you. Ta-da! We're in the year 2040. Let's move over there. A bunch of new fellows are curious and they dare. We are creating our own supernet highway, imagining our own moonshot pathway, measuring things that have not yet been discovered, using instruments that have not yet been invented. Gen 3 participants sits in a magical chamber when the 5D printer generates models to remember of a youthful heart and a wired brain of different parts of the body, both boutique and mundane. Magic pen scans a Gen 4 participant schedule with a smiling toddler into Gen 5's enrolled. Oh good Lord, I stand and applaud. It is to disperse into Gen 6. It must be that upcoming Jupiter. Back to 2018, it is the gong and sprung, reminding us that we are only 70 years young. And we smile because we know we have just begun. The best of Framingham is yet to come. I want to share with you just so that you know.
Yeah, that's fine.
We don't know all the places you go. We will remain curious and daring too. We will imagine and create our future here too. But today is your day. Your mountain is waiting. Let's get on the way. And you are just done with the last speech of the day. I want to welcome my colleague Dan Levy here because now we're not yet done. We still have acknowledgements and some cake cutting.
We'd like to acknowledge some of the people who've been critical to our 70 years of success. Let me first ask that anyone who's a member of the Friends of Framingham Heart Study or the Framingham Ethics Advisory Board, please stand.
Thank you. There are lots of investigators in this room, some outside this room, so please, the investigators in this room, could you please stand?
Members of the Framingham Heart Study staff, please stand.
Last but not the least, the lesson Dr. Castelli taught me, the most important person in the study. Should the participants stand up, please?
We owe you all an enormous debt of gratitude, and it's a pleasure to be here with you to celebrate. Thank you.
Well, that is all we have for you today. Thank you for joining us this afternoon. We know you have many things to do, but we're so glad you could come and celebrate with us. As you know, this is a celebration, so we're gonna have some cake. Please stay in your seats. We're gonna have our directors and some of our special guests join us in cutting our celebratory cake, and then of course, you'll be served. Thank you so much.
Michelle.